Hey everybody, it's Emily the Crazy Worm Lady. I am here today for the long-awaited reveal of our Urban Worm Bag 2.0. So you guys saw the setup of the original Urban Worm Bag. If you followed that playlist, I will link that below. But this is going to be the 2.0, and I'm going to run it with red wigglers exclusively. My current Urban Worm Bag is blue worms and European night crawlers. So I figured, why not do this one with just red wigglers? So I'm going to set this up and then we'll go over some of the features, and I think we're going to get it started today. So how crisp and clean is that? Brand new Urban Worm Bag. So this took me 5 minutes to set up. I mean, not exaggerating, just slid the metal bars out. There's new improved three-way brackets, and I could really feel the pieces snap into place when I pressed on the sides. This does not rock or sway the way the other one did, and that was a big upgrade that Steve did with this second version. Was he kind of sturdied up the frame, and he also has plans if you want to make your own frame. But I'm not a handy person at all, so I did opt for the standard frame that it comes with, and this seems nice and sturdy, and really my other one's just fine as well, but this definitely, you can tell, is kind of enhanced. So unzipping this here, pull the lid back, and check out that capacity. It's hard for us to realize when we're working in the current Urban Worm Bag just how large this space is. But I mean, my arm, I'm leaning all the way in here, and it's almost a stretch for my arm to reach to the bottom, and it's just super wide. And this is what I love so much about this, is it breathes really well. It's got a huge capacity, and in my opinion, the footprint of it is relatively small for the amount of capacity you get out of it. So the other upgrade that I know that they made was to the bottom harvest panel. So I'm going to move my light down there and we'll take a look at that before we get this set up with the worms. Alright guys, at first glance, the zippered area down here at the bottom, your harvest panel, looks identical to the first version. But I think the problem and the concern was that some people were having their castings get really caked up in the zipper, even though it's this marine grade zipper material, and like hard water could like calcify and make it very difficult for people to open and close it. I used a toothbrush to clean mine out, and it still wasn't ideal. It was a little bit of a struggle. So I definitely am glad that they recognized that as something that needed to be improved upon, and they delivered. So this is an inner liner, similar to the one you would see on my Vermi bag. But it's a little bit different because this one has a drawstring. So once you're ready to put everything in it, you pull the drawstring shut, tighten this little piece up, and that way your liner is tucked inside, and that way your castings are never coming in contact with the zipper. This is going to be huge for making harvesting, virtually painless. No added struggle with that, nothing that's going to be frustrating to deal with. So I'm really excited to see how that works. The other thing I noticed, which I had forgotten when I was told about the new version, is that there are these little loops. There's 4 of them kind of at each corner of your harvest panel, and this is to kind of grab onto and help you when you're doing your harvest process. But I could see it could have multi-uses. You could hang something from here, a thermometer that you use to check the temperature in your compost, a little rake. A lot of us got rakes with our worm factories that some of us still use periodically. There could be any number of things you could use it for, but I believe it was developed as like a stabilization loop for when you're harvesting. So I'm going to look over the directions one more time here, make sure I didn't miss anything, and that I'm accurately describing this to you guys. But it does come with this nice little laminated pamphlet showing you all of your pieces, how to assemble, your little owner's manual, so something to hold on to. And before I finish up with this video and continue on, I do want to let you guys know I am an affiliate with the Urban Worm Company. I have been almost from the beginning. And so if my opinions ever appear biased, I don't want you to feel like I was withholding information from you, because that is never my intention. So if you were to ever purchase an Urban Worm bag from my link, which is in the description below, I do get a commission from your purchase. So, you know, I aim to be honest, no matter what system I'm reviewing, but I just wanted to let you guys know that. But I think if you've seen enough of my videos, you know that I call out the good, bad, and the ugly on all of my systems, because there's no use in hiding things from people and wanting to build their trust. And I want you guys to trust me, and I want you guys to feel like I'm somebody you can ask questions to, and I'm not just going to give you the answer that I think you want to hear. So let's get some worms together. I'm going to finish reading these directions and we will get this set up. All right, so I zipped tight our little drawstring here. I am going to zip this up, and you can see how this is going to protect the zipper, because everything will be enclosed. There's just a tiny little opening at the bottom here where the drawstring is, but that's not going to be any sort of issue because there will be a barrier, and it's also another really great thing for airflow. So far so good. Let's get some worms into this party. So this is the inner drawstring panel. Now that it's all cinched shut, you can see I can barely fit my pointer finger through there, and this just collapses down into the bottom harvest panel. So just because there's this little piece here, I am gonna just lay like 2 pieces of newspaper on the bottom. I don't want to suffocate out the air that I can get from the bottom, but I also don't want to encourage worms to climb down through here. So first thing I'm gonna do is either lay like a piece of cardboard or a few pieces of newspaper, and then we'll add the worms. Okay guys, so I got 2 pieces of newspaper, just single layer thick, and I just kind of pressed it down to the bottom here. I think I'm breaking the standard rules of setup just a little bit with this, but I think for my particular situation and how I'm setting it up, that this is going to work just fine. So the first thing I'm going to add here is the existing worms that I had in that secret little bin of mine. Some red wigglers. I think it's probably about 2 pounds of worms roughly. So we're going to add them in, add a tiny bit of food, and just cover it with some eggshell and shredded paper, and then just let them sit for a week and kind of acclimate to their new habitat. So I'm going to bring them in here and we'll get them dumped in. Take a quick little peek at what we got. These are just red wigglers. This bedding is relatively dry, actually, I would say. So I think this will be good, because the initial setup of any system when you're trying to regulate your moisture can be a little bit tricky. It's easy to end up falling one way or the other and not finding that happy medium for a little while. And I was no exception to that getting started. So there was a little bit of food in here, but not much. These guys have been sitting with relatively small amount of food. I've been feeding every couple of weeks, waiting for the next project. I was not as timely with getting this set up as I would have liked. This was actually mailed to me the end of August, and it is almost the end of October, and I'm getting it set up. So that tells you what a good worm mom I am. This must have been where I fed. Oh yeah, melon rind. Woohoo! Check that out. I think these guys are going to be much happier. Ooh, my light's breaking on me. Going to be much happier in here. A lot more space. I'll be able to manage feeding them a little bit better. So I think it'll be an all-around good situation for them. So this is really heavy, so I'm gonna pour this in and then I'll bring you along for the rest. Okay, so typically you would prepare a bin or a bag like this prior to the worms even arriving. But since my worms were in what was essentially almost finished compost to begin with, that's why I felt comfortable doing everything all in one day. We already have the good microbial activity going on in here. We already have a little bit of food that they're finishing up in here. You know, a lot of worms and finished castings. So this is a good base to start with, so I don't feel like I have to be overly conservative, but I still am definitely, you know, going to take it slow and be careful and kind of methodical to make sure we don't run into any problems like I had early on with the first urban worm bag. Mainly moisture-wise was really my problem. So I have a single banana, frozen, thawed, split open. And then I just have a few more of those melon rinds. I always put them flush down so the worms can get to them. And again, you know, the amount of food you feed should always depend on how many worms you have. And for me, I have at least 2,000 worms in here, I'm thinking, after looking a little bit more closely. So I know, based on doing this for a while, that they can handle this type of quantity, but you always want to err on the side of caution and always underfeed as opposed to overfeeding. It's a lot easier to feed more later than to try to get food out. Once a bin gets sour, you can kill your worms and create all sorts of issues. So bedding is also a food source. So people forget that worms can reprocess their own castings, and they also have, you know, the newspaper pieces, the unprocessed coconut core, all of that is a food for them too. So definitely don't worry that you're underfeeding your worms and they're going to die from neglect. I think it's the exact opposite. Sometimes worm bins actually explode from neglect. So I've been doing this in all of my bins lately, adding some Neem Cake. It's good for pest control. It has some good nutrient values, but I think I read, somebody pointed me to an article that Neem Cake actually can sterilize certain bad bacteria that are in your bin, which is really fascinating. So I have to find the article and I'll link it if I can find it, of exactly what it said, but basically that's how it helps control the populations. Is that not that it kills them, but that it sterilizes them so it stops the cycle. So I added that Neem Cake, and let me grab some eggshell here. Sprinkle with some eggshell. Be generous with it, why not? It's the first feeding. Despite kind of feeling this want to add water to this, I'm not going to. Even though the compost, like I said, was borderline dry, those foods have moisture content, and it'll be easier to add moisture later once this bin has kind of found its equilibrium. But I don't want to add too much now and end up not being able to fix it, because it takes weeks and weeks to try to dry a bin out and get it back to normal. So I'm going to leave it exactly like this. Nothing else to it, no water. And I just hand shredded some newspaper. And I'm just going to fluff this up as a covering. It will eventually become worm food, but in the meantime, it is a good barrier for the bugs, and can catch some moisture if it would get too moist, which right now I don't think is a problem, but I guess it could be in the future. So I'm just going to add all this in here, and then we'll get it zipped up and call it a day. That's our finished product there. So that's going to be it for today, guys. That is week 1 of version 2.0, the brand new urban worm bag with all of the upgrades. And this urban worm bag we are going to do with red wigglers only. So I have a feeling going forward I will combine my 2 urban worm bag updates into one video per week. But I haven't quite figured out the logistics of that because I still want to show the differences just because we have different species of worms in each bag. I don't think the bags themselves are going to run any differently. The harvest might be a little bit different because of the improvements in this bag. But for now, I'm going to keep this on a separate playlist, and I will link the playlist of the original urban worm bag down below this video. But I wanted to thank you guys. I'm continuing my celebration 1-year YouTube anniversary. I am so blessed to have you guys with me. So let me know what you think. Drop those comments below. Like this video. Subscribe if you'd like some more content from me. And I'll be back with you guys next week for another update.